Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel where I help you become a better artist. Today's lesson is about how to correctly draw horns slash spikes on your creatures. This is a very tricky situation whenever you design creatures because it's very easy to just make the spikes come right out of the skin without any purpose to them. And I'm here to help you form the underlying bone structure and the muscle structure so that it looks like the horn is supposed to come out of the skin and is attached to the bones or whatever kind of material is underneath the skin. All right, so first things first, the overall shape of the creature's head is going to be very lightly drawn. It's going to be at a front 3/4 angle. I'm going to give it a little bit darker of an outline here just so you can see. It's going to be a pretty blunt face. I have an idea in my head of what I want the overall shape to be and where the spikes are going to exist. However, I'm not jumping right into that because and this is something that happens a lot throughout learning how to design creatures and characters for that matter, props, doesn't matter. It's details right off the bat. Okay, so you can see here on the outside, this whole region is going to be its nasal cavity. So I think I'm going to put a small slit right here for the nose so that on the other side, I'm going to put the nostril, the skin that's over top of the nostril hole so you can see it. There we go. Because imagine the horizon line directly in front. We're at eye level with the creature. Maybe it's poking its head out from foliage or whatnot. And then you can see it straight on. And then the second thing that I want to bring to your attention is bony landmarks. So when you think about a rhinoceros or bearded dragon, those kind of lizards, or even a triceratops, when you look at those skulls, the horns are very prominent out of the nose region, but also the brow ridge. So I put the bony landmark up here. And if you're not familiar with what a bony landmark is, it is the parts that are underneath the skin, the fatty tissue, the fur, scales, whatever, where the skull is most prominent. So that means it's coming outward. And think about the human jawbone. Okay, so our people who have chiseled jaw features, like the pronounced chin, nicely cut jaw right by the ears. Okay, those are bony landmarks. All right, so here I'm thinking, you know what? It's probably going to benefit this creature if it has a large horn coming right out of here in the front. Right about there. Okay, so you're probably thinking, wait a minute, it's just like a unicorn. Well, yes, technically it is. Oh, and by the way, this is one of the very few instances where you're going to catch me using an eraser. I'm just going to erase the skin away because I drew over top of the headline right here, and I don't want to show that in between the spike and the skull. All right, so I'm putting in the horn right here, and also all horns, they don't have to be sharp at the end. Think about a rhinoceros. You know, the rhinoceros horn actually isn't bone. It's the same material as their toenails and fingernails. It's crazy. Well, toenails, considering they don't really have hands. It's pretty neat. The next thing that I want you to pay attention to is how the skin forms around where the bone is actually growing out of it. Okay, it's very easy to just put a spike on top of the skin just because you think it should be there. Okay, versus making it very believable. This horn coming out, I'm going to make it a bone, but it's attached to the skull underneath. So you got to think over evolution of this creature, how evolution made it form that horn coming out. Okay, so it's got this very prominent head, kind of like a Pachycephalosaurus, you know, the bony heads, they head-butted. All right, so I'm thinking it's probably going to need a very strong brow ridge. So that means that if the eye is going to be here, so I'm going to darken it right there so you can actually see the eye. Right there. It's going to be a little bit wider of an eye. If ever I draw something scary, it's usually a very deep inset eyeball without any emotion or logic or reason. It just wants to kill you. But I'm going to put something a little bit more, how should I say, emotional in there. Now, I'm going to give you a couple other side lessons along with the horns, and that is, if you're ever doing something in this type of view, you want to make sure that any parts sticking out of the head, or shape for that matter, you're going to show some indications of it on the other side. So even though this is slightly tilted front 3/4, this is a pretty prominent brow right here. So I'm just going to make sure I indicate where that could be on the other side. And I'm going to darken the horn line so that the horn is showing up in front of that brow ridge. I'm already establishing depth without shading yet. So that's another important feature that you need to put in your drawings. Because this is why I stress line weight and line quality. Okay, shading actually comes with good line weight and line quality. I have a lot of students, those of you listening that I have mentored and taught at colleges and stuff, you'll know that I'm going to make you draw 500 straight lines. Okay, that's probably one of the best warm-ups you're ever going to do. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my sketchbook slightly, and I'm going to put just a very light touch of value over the eye region. Oh, and I have some very, very good news for all of you. Starting next video, not this one, but next one, I have my new camera. I have my new camera, and I'm really excited about it. I'm actually using the new light source that I have now. So this is it's actually studio lighting. It's only one directional this way. I have the other tripod over on my right, but it's a little too bright, especially in the daytime. All right. Now that I'm getting a couple different directions here, let me move some stuff out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to tilt my sketchbook this way. Again, regardless of what I'm drawing, I'm always focusing on the eye first, because getting that emotion in and the personality for my creatures is paramount. There we go. There we go. Okay. And if the screen is shaking just a little bit, my apologies. Okay, now that I got that in, great. Okay, let's have some fun. So let's say, and I've seen this a lot, what if you want to put a spike directly above the eye? Like, why not? That's how you make it pretty pronounced. So I'm just going to draw the tip of it, put a little bit of shape on it. Maybe I'll put a second one here. So this is almost like a dragon, kind of. Now, whatever I put over here, I must put over there. So that means that if we're looking at this at eye level, okay, we're going to cut this head in half. Okay, it's equidistant, so I'm not looking down at it, I'm not looking up at it, it's directly at eye level. That means that I can put a little bit of a, not a construction line, but a measuring line going across for each spike. Okay, so let's just make one slightly show right past that horn. This one won't show too much either. And then this one is probably going to be directly behind it, because it's foreshortened. All right. Now, one of the 7 principles of design is repetition. So you want to make sure that any of the things that you're doing for your creatures, you want to be able to repeat that pattern at some point. That's why if ever I focus on the head first, and any of the prominent details that I put on the head, I want to make sure that those details are at least repeated throughout the creature's design, because it brings a sense of wholeness to it. All right, because you don't want to put a bunch of crazy spikes and fins and scales on the face, but have the rest of the body look like a sea otter or something. It doesn't make any sense. You got to keep that repetition going. Okay, so How would I draw the skin around the horn in order to make it look realistic, like it's growing out of it? Well, here's what you do. There are many, many imperfections in nature. Just look at your hands for a minute, okay? Just put your hands up, okay? All these lines are different. They're not the same for everybody, whether you got calluses, whether you got like a knuckle that's crooked, like your vein isn't the same on the left side as it is on the right side. It's kind of the same, but not really. Think about the skin that's going around a horn. All right, so you're going to put some wrinkles in here that are probably going to be pretty skinny at the very top of the mound. Okay, so the mound, as in thinking about this as a mountain. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so you actually know what I'm talking about. Okay, so you'll see that these lines right here, these wrinkles, are actually getting skinnier. Okay, that means that this skin at the very top is fanning out way, way far around the horn to the part where it's going to break up and actually become the horn. Down here, you're going to have more fat tissue, and it's going to be a little thicker down at the base. Okay, so once you indicate where those are, then you can kind of play with, oh, okay, well, maybe this is why when you look at, again, I'm going to use a rhinoceros as an example. This is why it just looks really cruddy and dirty at the base of a rhino horn. Okay, this is also the fun part. This is what brings out the realism. If you watch How to Train Your Dragon, or, even Reign of Fire, I keep using these dragon references, they do an amazing job at showing you this kind of stuff on their facial horns. Because let's face it, these horns should not be perfect. If you want realism to happen, the horns should not be perfect. Instead, show those imperfections, because you want personality to show through these. So I'm going to indicate where a core shadow eventually would be located on this thing. It's very light because I still have to add in a coating of value going up that horn. Okay, the same thing with these too. So these have to grow out of the brow ridge. Think about the T-Rex, okay, the Hollywood version, okay, not the accurate one. But when you look at Jurassic Park, love the movie. Even when you look at Peter Jackson's King Kong movie from 2006 or whatever, those terrifying T-Rexes with gap teeth and overhangs and everything, they're crazy, but they have awesome facial features. And you want to make sure that these facial features look like they all belong together. Okay, that's the key. So now I'm going to put a coating of value. Let's see if I can get right here. Coating of value of that horn. Very, very lightly. Those of you that are new to my channel, thank you for watching me. If you're interested in what I actually use material-wise, I'm just using a standard 4B pencil, and I'm drawing on moleskin because I personally like the smoothness of moleskin. There's a lot of other really good papers out there. For example, Strathmore, Kansan, they're very, very good. Even their Bristol board's good. If you want ultra smooth, take your pencil and draw on marker paper. You got Graphics 360, you got Letraset. And if you want to get really fancy but really old school, you have the rolls of vellum that you could buy. Okay, so here's the fun thing. Let me zoom out again so you can actually see. Let's go back to regular view. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to put some more shading around that eye. Notice how I'm shading over top of the eyeball. There's value, even in highlights. Always remember that. Thank you for sticking around too. And if, I encourage you to keep watching, because in a little bit, I'm going to be doing some time lapse of this, and you're really going to see this face come to life. Okay, so I'm going to be spending a significant amount of time on that. Time lapse won't be that long, but the process of me drawing it to make it into a time lapse, I'm probably going to be spending about an hour on it. Okay, there we go. So now we have that. That's still not smooth enough. There's going to be a lot more details coming in on this sucker. Okay, there we go. All right. So now that we have that, you can start to see the realism of the horn coming out. And I'm going to put in some darker lines here that are kind of sporadic to show that the fat folds and the skin folds are happening randomly because each creature is different. Okay, let's say this species has millions and millions of versions of itself. Okay, it lives in a pretty good society and they're not going extinct, so each one is going to have a different, it's just like deer with antlers, moose, gazelle, yeah, all those animals that have horns basically. Okay, they're all different. Okay, so now that we have this, now you can start to see the personality coming out. All right, we have this cool horn coming out of the head. So if you guys are drawing along with me, make sure that the horn itself looks like it belongs inside of the skin. Make sure it's coming out through it. Okay, because you can do this throughout the rest of the creature. Just make sure that you draw that center line in here so you know where the center of the neck is as it goes down the backside. That's the other thing I think people mess up on a lot is when they draw the spikes or the horns or whatever's growing out of the body and the neck is turned, they don't stay true to where the center of the neck is, where that spinal column is. So they end up forcing us as the viewer to see more of the spike because they think it looks cool versus what actually is shown in real life if you were to model this and see it, as it's walking in front of you. All right. So next up, I'm going to be doing some time lapse. Stick around. I hope you enjoy it. You're going to see how I form everything. And then I'm going to talk a little bit towards the end of the video about all the details that I put in. And, if you have any questions on this, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I try to get to all of them as best I can. All right. So without further ado, let's get some time lapse in here. All right, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed that little time-lapse session. I'm going to go over with you briefly about what you saw, and hopefully this will give some clarity as to why I built the things that I did and why I layered the things that I did. So there are three areas of interest here that I put more detail into than anywhere else. That is the eyeball, and that is the mouth region, and then right up here in the nose and where the horn comes out. So the reason I did that was because one, the lesson is about horns, so you can see, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I mean, there's more than a dozen horns on this creature, but it's about conveying the sense of structure underneath the surface of the skin and the muscles and the hair and everything. Because what happens is you have to prove that those bones and horns and spikes belong on the creature that you're sketching. So I put wrinkles in here, and then you have to embrace the imperfections of your creature. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, especially when you want to invent cool stuff on the fly. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. As a matter of fact, some of the best creature designs in Hollywood and in games have crazy imperfections in them. Like, think about The Last of Us. Okay, you have those fungus covered zombie-esque creatures, and none of them are symmetrical. You have these weird shapes coming out everywhere. Think about The Thing. Okay, so since when has The Thing ever been symmetrical? You got tentacles, you got dog heads, you have insects from other planets mixed in with the DNA. That's what makes it so unique. So when you're doing something like horns, like this horn on the chin does not equal this one. The wrinkles are different on this one. And it could be that maybe the horn isn't as long as that one. Okay, maybe there's a stump. Okay, one of the coolest things to do, I didn't do it in this drawing, but whenever you sketch something with horns or spikes, make one of them broken off, because then you're telling a story such as maybe this creature was in a really hard-fought battle. Maybe it's so old and war-torn that it's got a lot of battle scars, and one of the horns is broken off. So that's always like a cool story to tell, and you don't even have to say anything. All right, so I put a lot of wrinkles in here, and the mouth slits are very important in your creatures because, again, they're not perfect, and also the layering of skin is different throughout. Think about a human mouth. All right, so the wrinkles in the corners of our mouths when we get older are different than the wrinkles on the tops of our lips that connect our nostrils to our bottom or our top lip. You just have to think along those lines. These horns weren't as important. I gave the indication of what they will be doing. You can kind of fill in the rest. It's like reading a novel. You write the words down and you can fill in the rest. So I didn't go into as much detail about these horns coming out of the chin because you already know how they grow out here. So this is the focal point. This is the money shot slash selling point. All right, and then the eye, of course, you always want to add in emotion. Okay, so it's a very stern creature. It's a very, not necessarily mean, but it's been around. Okay, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands of years old. It's seen some stuff. Okay, so get your sketchbooks. Hopefully you drew along with me, but if not, after you're done with this video, get some sketchbooks, and I would love to see your work. Please look at the description of this video and look at the different links, especially the Creature Design Workshop Discord. We got an influx of people every single day coming in, posting their personal work, their drawings and stuff. We're all here to learn too. So please join in if you're interested, and you can visit my Instagram too. All right, guys. Later. Thanks for watching.